promise of commons. Commons are community forests, pastures, and water bodies. They cover 25% of India's landmass. 350 million people depend on commons for their livelihoods. It helps rural people, especially women, meet basic needs of food, fodder, medicine, firewood, and timber. It is a critical source of income and sustenance for tribal populations, 45% of whom live below the poverty line. Between 40 and 60% of their income is from the collection and sale of non-timber forest produce. Similarly, landless, marginal, and small farmers rely heavily on common pastures for the fodder and water needs of their livestock. When commons are ecologically healthy, they improve surface and groundwater, soil nutrients, pollination, pest control, carbon storage, and create a thriving ecosystem. This healthy ecosystem helps improve the productivity and resilience of farms, forests, and pastures. This is essential in the face of the climate crisis. The problem, opportunity, and system barriers. Widespread degradation of commons is worsening rural distress, especially impacting women. Agricultural yields are falling, costs of cultivation are rising, water tables are getting depleted, forests are shrinking, and pastures are degrading. These in turn contribute to declining rural incomes, growing inequality, distress migration, additional burden on women, and worsening the impacts of climate change. Communities, especially women, who depend on the forests, pastures, and water bodies around them, don't have the rights and resources to protect and manage these commons. Opportunity for change. But today there are opportunities to address these problems. Our Prime Minister is recognized as a champion for climate action. He has increased national commitments to land restoration. Laws such as the Panchayati Raj Act and the Forest Rights Act support community-led commons restoration. State and national governments have made ambitious commitments on farmers' incomes, land degradation and climate change, water availability, and sustainable development goals. In fact, state governments already spend about $5 billion every year on restoration of natural resources under the Right to Employment Act. This is a huge opportunity to embed commons into government programs, since supporting decentralized community-led commons restoration can help governments meet these commitments. Barriers to change. To make the most of these opportunities, we first need to understand why efforts to restore commons so far have not quite succeeded. This is because of 4 deep-rooted problems. Number 1, people working on commons don't work together. Governments at all levels, NGOs, panchayat institutions, and other actors don't plan and implement in tandem. Because they work in silos, they fail to deliver concrete and lasting impact. Problem number 2. Actors with mandate to implement programs don't have capacity. The actors responsible for implementing programs don't have the capacity to plan and implement. They don't have enough information to make evidence-based decisions. Problem number 3. National/state governments and institutions provide only weak support to commons restoration. Commons are widely and erroneously perceived as wastelands that should be put to other productive uses. Evidence that commons play important ecological and economic roles is not well known, which is why social and political interest in commons restoration remains low. Problem number 4. Actors responsible for implementing laws, policies, and programs are not held accountable. Laws policies, and programs that support community rights, commons restoration, and women's representation exist. But there are no mechanisms in place to ensure that those responsible for implementing them are held accountable. Moreover, communities and NGOs don't have the capacity or information to hold authorities accountable. As a result, commons are often diverted for development projects. Women's rights to representation in decision making are also routinely ignored. Solution: when communities, especially women, are entrusted with the power to control and govern their commons, opportunities open up to sustainably increase rural incomes, promote women's participation in collective decision making, and reap ecological dividends. This is the promise of the commons. Our successful core model works to advance governance of commons by local communities with a three-pronged approach. 1. Secure community land rights. 2. Collective and inclusive governance of commons. 3. Access to funds and other resources for restoration of commons. Evidence from our work on the ground shows that in over 3 to 5 years, commons become ecologically healthier, they produce more food, fodder, and other useful materials, they improve water availability, soil quality, and biodiversity, so farmers save on fertilizers, pesticides, and irrigation. Yields go up, and farmers can grow a second crop as well. As a result, average household incomes increase by 30 to 50%. People spend more on food, health, and education. To achieve this kind of enduring and transformational change at scale, we will pursue two strategic pathways. 1. Scale the core model on the ground. That is, at the block and district levels in partnership with NGOs and government. 2. Strengthen an environment that enables change at state and national levels through partnerships, knowledge, and technology. The two pathways reinforce each other. A solid number of successful initiatives on the ground will build pressure for responsive and inclusive governance. Champions at state and national levels who push for favorable policies and programs will make work possible at the population scale. Together, these two pathways will address the four systemic problems described earlier. Number 1. Align goals and actions of important actors. We will implement multi-actor platforms that bring together actors at the block and district levels to plan and implement in tandem. We will form coalitions with policy stakeholders at the state and national levels. And we will nurture partnerships with women's movements and other alliances on food security, natural farming, climate change, and sustainable livelihoods. Number 2. Build capacity at scale. We will train community members, NGO partners, and government officials to implement programs and policies more effectively. We will use technology and partner with governments to expand the reach of these trainings. And we will expand our existing tech platforms to improve access to locally relevant data and tools that support better planning and implementation. Number 3. Create support for commons restoration at the state and national levels. We will partner with governments to influence policy and programs on commons. We will work with think tanks, research bodies, and communicators to showcase evidence and stories on the benefits of thriving commons. And we will pilot and scale livelihood solutions through self-help groups and innovative market ideas. Number 4. Improve accountability on implementation of laws, policies, and programs on commons. We will mobilize support for implementation of existing laws and programs within and outside the government. We will work with governments to introduce accountability mechanisms. We will improve community access to data and legal resources to ensure accountability. And we will build strong alliances with legal associations and advocacy networks. And this way, the two pathways will shift the system and deliver the promise of commons. To implement the two pathways, we need to expand the coalition of actors pushing for change. Over the years, we have built strong coalitions with local communities, NGOs, government, academia, and think tanks. These coalitions help accelerate action on the ground and build knowledge and evidence on commons. A guided mentoring platform builds the capacities of communities, NGO, and government actors so they can implement the core model in an inclusive, effective, data-based way. Our tech solutions increase the reach, efficiency, and effectiveness of local planning and investment. We see a clear and present opportunity to align community, civil society, and government goals, as well as existing laws and programs. To do this, we will position 1. Increased water availability as an objective of commons restoration. 2. Forest, pastures, and water bodies as durable community assets developed by Right to Employment Act funds. 3. Panchayats as custodians of commons. And 4. Self-help group infrastructure as a vehicle for tilting decision-making towards women. Five-year goals and vision. We are confident that implementing our plan in the current window of time will help us deliver significant impact in 5 years. 38 million rural people, including 19 million women, will have secure rights to access, use, and manage 30 million acres of commons, improving their livelihoods and the health of their commons. 11 million rural people will benefit from the 50% improvement in stable net incomes that result from restored commons and better access to markets and social security schemes. This will set in motion a cascade of change, leading to the full realization of the promise of commons in the long term. 350 million rural poor enjoying improved economic and ecological outcomes from gender-inclusive, community-led governance of 205 million acres of India's commons.